We just stepped on their face with a hobnail boot and broke their nose. We just crushed their face.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Glory UGA podcast, brought to you by our great friends at MyBookie. Don't miss out on the great promo deal they're offering right now, guys. All you have to do is go to mybookie.ag, sign up for a new account, use our code UGA when you do so, and you will get hooked up with a first bet that is fully covered all the way up to $500. Awesome deal. Don't miss out, guys. But today on the show, we've got a big one today. It's time to preview Georgia's SEC opener against the Tennessee Volunteers with the most in-depth breakdown of this matchup between the Dogs and the Balls that I humbly believe that you will find anywhere out there. We're talking personnel, we're talking numbers, we're talking matchups, everything, guys. You name it, we're breaking it down here today on the show to get you diehard fans ready for this big showdown in Knoxville. So we're going to come heavy with all of that, guys. But first, episodes like this, really everything we do here on this channel is designed for all you diehard Georgia fans. So if you fit that description, go ahead, subscribe right now. You don't want to miss out on any content we have coming your way the rest of the 2025 season. Subscribe, like, comment, all that, guys. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you checking out this episode. All right, guys. So we're 2 weeks in the season, 2 games down, and we've kind of played around the first 2 weeks. We dipped our toes in the water, we got our feet wet, but at the same time, when we're talking about Marshall basically replacing their entire roster and coaching staff, and an FCS team in Austin Peay, we haven't really been challenged to this point. Well, that's going to change real quick, guys. That will change this week as the Dogs make the short trip north to Knoxville to take on the 15th ranked Tennessee Volunteers, a very talented Tennessee team that, quite frankly, to this point, 2 weeks in the season, has looked the part for whatever that's worth when you're considering the competition. Syracuse, so I know the FBS team, ACC team, respectable, right? They also almost lost to Connecticut. In fact, they were down double digits for large chunks of that game, came back, won that late, actually ended up winning that game in overtime. So how good is Syracuse? I don't know, but hey, it is what it is. Georgia hasn't played anybody either. It is what it is, right? East Tennessee State, Tennessee did what they do to teams like East Tennessee State. They just run the score up on teams like that. They do every single year. So I don't know how much you can take in, how much you can take out of that, but it's time here today on this show, guys, to really dive deep, to take you diehards on a deep dive into this Tennessee Volunteer football team, and more specifically, the matchup between Tennessee and Georgia, guys. Because I can tell you about the numbers, I can tell you about the personnel, we'll do all of that, but at its core, football is a game of matchups. The most talented team, the team that if you stacked up the recruiting rankings, 1 through 85 on their team, well, that team doesn't always win. More often than not, they usually do, but they're upsets, right? Sometimes the lesser talented team, at least in terms like overall talent, they win games. Why? Matchups. It comes down to matchups. So we're going to really pay attention to the matchups here on this show. And let's open with the obvious here, guys. You probably already know this. I'm probably not telling you much anything you don't know, but it's a great starting point. So Georgia right now is currently on an 8-game win streak, right? An 8-game win streak over the Vols coming into this matchup in Knoxville on Saturday, including the last 4 against Josh Heupel's version of the Tennessee program. Yes, Josh Heupel has yet to beat Georgia. In fact, has yet to come like particularly close. Last year was closer, right? I know the final margin of being 2 scores, but it was a much closer game for most of that game. So I will certainly allow that. But guys, it's not only that Georgia's won 8 in a row. Like the 4 before Josh Heupel, like let's throw that out. That doesn't really have any sort of relevance to this game as far as I'm concerned. It's great to say from the Georgia standpoint, but it doesn't really have relevance to this particular matchup. But what does have relevance are the last 4 years. And now I am a believer, guys, that like, what's happened historically doesn't necessarily translate to the new season, but sometimes the trends are the way they are for a reason. And not only has Georgia won 4 straight against Tennessee under Josh Heupel, won 8 straight overall, but each of the 4 matchups against Josh Heupel's version of Tennessee, Georgia has won those games by an average of 20 points. So we're essentially talking 3 tutties here, 3 touchdowns. Those are facts, all right? That's not me coming hard at Tennessee fans. If some Tennessee fans have found their way to this video, that's not me taking shots. Those are just facts. Like that's reality. It is what it is. Maybe they'll change one day. And back when I was a kid in the 90s, it was the inverse. Like I've gone through the other side of this. I know that sucks, but right now we kind of had the better of the Volunteers. So from that standpoint, it would be fair to say, won the last 8, all 4 against Josh Heupel's version of Tennessee, that Georgia has like Tennessee's number, right? You hear that cliche thrown out there. But when I hear that, like, oh, this team just has their number, is kind of like implying that there's like a luck factor there. Like, oh yeah, they some way somehow just find a way to always beat this team. But guys, Georgia's dominance of Tennessee over the last 8 years, and certainly more recently, the last 4 years under Josh Heupel, it's not a luck thing. Like Georgia hasn't lucked into beating Tennessee by 3 touchdowns each of the 4 years on average under Josh Heupel. It's a matchup thing, right? That's why I'm going to focus heavily on the matchups here today. The reality is that Georgia, specifically Georgia defensively, is just a matchup and a code that Josh Heupel, as good of a coach as he is, and I do have a lot of respect for Josh Heupel. I think he's a really good coach. But the Georgia defense, that matchup, that code is just something that Josh Heupel has yet to crack in his time at Tennessee. And you don't have to take my word for it, guys. I'll give you some numbers to back it up. All right. So let's look at this, guys. So I went and crunched these numbers. I spent a lot of time double, triple checking myself to make sure this was accurate. I'm not a math guy, but these numbers, you can take this to the bank. They are accurate. So Tennessee under Josh Heupel. So from day one, 2021 to where we are now, is averaging 465 yards of total offense, 6.85 yards per play, and 34 points per game against every SEC team not named Georgia in his first 4 years at the helm of the Tennessee program. Again, 465 yards, 6.85 yards per play, 34 points per game on average against all SEC teams in his first 4 seasons, not named the Georgia Bulldogs. Well, what about Georgia? What has Tennessee's offense done against the Bulldogs? Well, not that. Against Georgia, the 4 matchups to this point that Tennessee has had against Georgia under Josh Heupel, the Vols have averaged 316.5 total yards, 4.45 yards per play, and 14 points per game. Again, 316.5 total yards per game, 4.45 yards per play, and 14 points per game against Georgia. Go roll the numbers, guys. You can double check me if you want. That's fine. Check my math. It's all good. But, guys, that comes out to against Georgia, Tennessee is averaging 150 total yards, 2.4 yards per play, and 20 points less in their matchups against Georgia than they are against all other SEC teams, okay? That's a pretty stark stat right there. That's pretty eye-opening. So the question becomes, I think the really important question is, why is that? Why has the Tennessee offense, which has lit up most SEC defense, guys, I mean, outside of Georgia, 465 total yards per game, 6.85 yards to play, 34 points. Those are elite numbers against all other SEC teams. But why can't they do that against Georgia? And we're not talking about small sample size, guys. We're not talking about one game. We're not talking about 2 games. We're talking about all 4 years under Josh Heupel. So why is that? Because if Tennessee is going to win this game or ever beat Georgia, when Kirby Smart's at Georgia and Josh Heupel's at Tennessee, those numbers are going to have to change. They're not going to beat Georgia if they put up 316 yards in a game, 4.45 yards per play, and 14 points. It's just not going to happen. Those numbers have got to change if they want to win this game, if they want to beat Georgia in the future. It's simple, guys. It really is. I'm not going to try to make this any more complicated than it actually is. And I've talked about this for years on this show with this matchup. So yeah, you guys know we've been doing the audio side of things for 11 years. Got this YouTube channel going really over the past, like, I don't know, 8, 9 months, I guess, since the last season went final, 2024 season went final. So I know some of you are newer to the show. So if you haven't heard me talk about this, I want to make sure I explain this for everyone out there. Those who have been with us for forever, just, allow me to just go into detail here with why Tennessee just matches up so poorly with the Georgia defense, okay? Why has a Josh Heupel offense never scored more than 17 points, which is the facts, guys. Josh Heupel's offenses have not yet scored more than 17 points against a Georgia defense. It's this simple, guys. It's as simple as saying that Georgia has been too good in the front 6 for Tennessee. It's that simple, guys. With its talent and its depth on the defensive line and an inside linebacker, Georgia has been able to either shut down the Tennessee run game in most matchups, or at least, like last year, we didn't completely shut the run game down. They actually ran the ball better than they ever had against Georgia last year, but at least held the run game relatively in check in terms of like what Tennessee did relative to everyone else. So why does that matter? Why does it matter that Georgia's able to stop the Tennessee run game with its talent and depth on defensive line and linebacker? Because, guys, the Tennessee offense, which is, by the way, if you're not familiar with like the origins of this Josh Heupel offense, it's an offshoot of the old Art Briles Baylor offense, like the deep option offense. They've certainly evolved from that, and they kind of branched off, and they've. I will give Tennessee and Josh Heupel credit. They've added more to the offense since when he first got to Tennessee and when he was back at UCF, when he was back at Missouri back in the day. But this Tennessee offense, which does kind of emanate from that Art Briles family, it is designed around trying to create one-on-one opportunities on the outside for explosive passing plays down the field. That's what they want to do at its core, okay? Now, the next part of this is, okay, that's really what they want to do. That's how they just decimate teams. That's how they drop like 70 on East Tennessee State. How do they generate those explosive plays? Well, guys, they count the box. That's what they do, okay? They count the box. If the box count is even numbers or better, they're going to run the football almost every single time. I can't say without fail. There are a few exceptions here or there. They might call a screenplay. That's just like a call from the sideline. Potentially that happens from time to time. But the vast majority of the time, it's a box count. If the box count is even numbers for the defensive front six and the offensive line and the blockers they have there, if it's even numbers or better, they're going to run the football with a physical ground game. And don't make any mistake about it, guys. It is a physical Tennessee ground game. They commit to it, and they have enough success doing it in what they do. If they have enough success running the football, that will eventually force opposing defenses to roll bodies, roll safeties in the box. So leave that too high safety shell, play with a single safety there. And what does that do? It creates those one-on-one opportunities for those kill shots on the outside, which again, that's what they're trying to create. How do they do that? They run the football. They commit to run the football, and they run it and run it, run it until they get what they want on the outside, and then they murder you doing that. And that's what they do against teams like East Tennessee State. That's what they do against teams like Syracuse. That's what they do against most teams in the SEC. But here's the problem for Tennessee when they play Georgia. When Tennessee counts the box against Georgia and they count even numbers, well, they're like, okay, well, it's what we do. We're going to run the football. But when they run the ball into Georgia's defensive front six, even if it is even numbers, Georgia is good enough to stifle their run game with those even numbers without having to dedicate more bodies into the box, without having to roll safeties down. So that allows Georgia to keep a too high safety shell all game. You can play some quarter stuff, you can play cover two. You have a lot more coverages at your disposal. But the bottom line is you have safety help over the top, and they cannot create those one-on-one matchups for the kill shots that they are trying to create. Right, that they use to pull away from the East Tennessee States and the Syracuses of the world. It is that simple, guys. Like in a nutshell, that is why Georgia has had so much success each of the time it's played a Josh Heupel offense, defending that offense and beating these Tennessee teams handily every time that they play them, right? Tennessee just quite simply has not been able to match up front with Georgia. It is that simple, guys. It's no more complex than that. So, if that is the case, the question for this game becomes, will any of that change this season, right? If Tennessee's going to win this game, something has to change there. So now that I have established the general contours of the Tennessee offensive scheme, let's dive more specifically into the Tennessee offense. Let's look at some numbers. Let's look at the personnel specifically. Now, quarterback, let's start there, right? Quarterback is the most important position on any football team. I actually think that they are better at quarterback this year than they were a year ago. I suggested as much. Might end up being the case on the Scouting the Enemy episode that I did during the offseason about a month and a half, 2 months ago. I thought there was a shot going back as when Joey Aguilar transferred there. I went back and found it and pulled up as much App State tape as I could, try to find some all 22 stuff and watch as much App State stuff as I could to get a feel for how good Joey Aguilar was. I watched a couple games last year, bits and pieces of them. Didn't watch a ton of App State because they were terrible last year. But I kind of dove deep into it this offseason to kind of get prepared for the Scouting the Enemy episode I did, and also this episode, knowing this was going to be coming up week 3. And I thought there was a shot that Aguilar, if he cleaned up on some of his issues from a year ago, from a pure physical standpoint, might actually end up being better than Nico Iamaleava. I think that's the case. I know it's a small sample size, and I know it is not great competition, and we've seen Tennessee offenses before put up huge numbers against overmatched teams like East Tennessee State and to a lesser degree Syracuse, and they play a real SEC team early in the season, and then it doesn't look like that. Go back to last year, right? Put up big numbers. What it was NC State week 1, and then a baby seal the next week, and then you go to Arkansas. Arkansas wasn't even a particularly good SEC team, and Arkansas shut them down more or less. I mean, Tennessee really couldn't do anything against that Arkansas defense. So we've seen that story before, but I do think that Joey Aguilar is a good quarterback. Athletically speaking, I think he is at least equal to Nico Imaliava in athleticism. There might be an argument to make that Aguilar might be a little bit of a better athlete, maybe a little bit more explosive. They're comparable, okay? They're both really good athletes. They can both run the football. Where I think Joey Aguilar has an advantage over Nico, this is where Imaliava really struggled last year, and I was all over this last year talking about that's why I predicted Georgia win that game last year, even coming off the massive blowout loss to Ole Miss, because Nico Imaliava was a highly, and still is a highly inaccurate deep ball passer. And again, guys, that's what the Tennessee offense is trying to do. They're trying to run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, get you to bring your safeties up, create one-on-ones on the outside, but you got to hit the one-on-ones. And they had a lot of one-on-one opportunities last year, guys. They just didn't hit him at near as high of a clip as they hit him. Certainly with Hendon Hooker, not as much so with Joe Milton. They hit him more with Joe Milton than they did with Imaliava last year. I mean, speaking of that Arkansas game, guys, I mean, I watched every snap of that game. I mean, guys, Tennessee, I think you make an argument Tennessee lost that game because of Nico Imaliava. I think Tennessee fans, if you found this episode, might probably agree with that because, I mean, they had guys running open. He just couldn't hit them. The Alabama game, they were fortunate to win the game. Yeah, they won it. They should have won that game by multiple scores because they had guys run up and down the field all game long. Nico just didn't hit them, especially in the first half. Hit a couple more in the second half, but just missed so many. He missed a couple against Georgia, too. It was just a common theme for Nico Imaliava. Aguilar, I'm not saying he's perfect. You go back and you watch the tape from Syracuse, like he hit some, but he also missed some that were there as well. But he is a more accurate downfield passer. What I've seen this year to this point, which, small sample size, but even going back to his time at Appalachian State, he has a really good arm as well. He's got a cannon. I think the arm strength is comparable to what Nico Imaliava brings to the table. So I think physically comparable, but he's a more accurate downfield passer, which is a better fit for the Tennessee offense. So I think when you look at the Tennessee offense this year, I should go back to last year. I think the reason the Tennessee offense in 2024, let's go there, was the worst offense in the Josh Heupel era, which it was, guys. Go through the numbers. Like the Tennessee's offenses in 21 and especially 22 were monsters. They were elite. 2022 was the best offense in the country, hands down. They were freaking awesome. But since that point, 23 took a major step back. 24 took an even bigger step back. And I think the biggest reason for that was Nico Imaliava's inaccuracy down the field, right? Despite having, I think, the best offensive line they had to date under Josh Heupel a year ago, and the SEC Offensive Player of the Year, Dylan Sampson, a running back, they had an elite run game last year, guys. So they should have been able to create a lot of one-on-ones on the outside, forcing teams to bring safeties in the box. And they did create a lot of them. They just couldn't hit them because Nico couldn't hit them. So Aguilar, I look at this guy, he's got a live arm, he's more accurate down the field. So if they are able to some way, somehow generate those one-on-one opportunities against Georgia down the field, I do believe he is more capable of hitting them than Imaliava was a year ago and still is over at UCLA. He's probably regretting that, right? He has to be. And the thing about Aguilar is with his athleticism, he's also a threat to pull it and run. Like the guy is a legit athlete. They're not going to run him a ton because I don't know if they trust what they have behind him as much, but they will run him. They ran him against Syracuse, not as much against East Tennessee State because it's East Tennessee State, but they ran him against Syracuse and he had success there. He's good, guys. He is a good player. I'm not sure he's an elite quarterback, but he is good. And again, he's put up big numbers so far against Syracuse and East Tennessee State. So take what you want from that. But he's been good, guys. He's averaging about 250-ish yards passing per game. But here's the one last thing I'll mention with Aguilar before we move on. He's looked good so far. I like his skill set. I think he's a good fit for the Tennessee offense. I think they got themselves a nice quarterback here. But he does have a little bit of a dark history playing that quarterback position. Last year at Appalachian State, now you can argue that Appalachian State was just terrible, so maybe he's forcing balls when they shouldn't have been forced. Maybe. I went back and watched most of their games this offseason, a good number of them. But last year at Appalachian State, he threw more interceptions than any quarterback in all of FBS football. He threw more picks than anybody in all of college football, the football bowl subdivision, okay? So when he plays a defense like, I don't know, the Georgia defense that can actually challenge the Tennessee offense more than what Syracuse and East Tennessee State did and can generate more pressure with better athletes, Will he revert to some of his old ways? The guy hasn't faced a lot of pressure the first 2 weeks, guys. That's going to change likely in this game, right? He's going to feel more pressure. He's going to feel more heat. George is going to get after him a little bit more. Is that going to lead him to revert back to some of his old ways? Guys, some of the interceptions either against Appalachian State, it's kind of like, what are you thinking type stuff? Like, what in the world are you possibly looking at here? It's almost like panic stuff, right? So can Georgia force him into some of those mistakes and force him to revert back to those old ways? Because he would put the ball in harm's way last year, guys, like unnecessarily put the ball in harm's way when it didn't need to be put in harm's way. So that's something to watch there, but he is a good quarterback. I do think it's probably an upgrade over Nico Imalayava. So again, I do think they are better at quarterback. But the other part of the pass game equation has to be the wide receivers, right? So if you look at the wide receiver play with Tennessee, if you go back and try to trace, like, okay, why has their offense declined from 2022 to 2023 to 2024? To me, it's wide receiver play in combination with the poor quarterback play each of the last 2 seasons that has kept a lid of sorts on this Tennessee offense. They have just been average at wide receiver. That's the reality. Since 2022, they were great in 2022. Jalen Hyatt, Blitnikoff Award winner, right? Tillman, when he was healthy, great, right? Past couple years, 23 and 24, they've been fine, not bad, just not elite. Not really scaring me. I know people like Brew McCoy. I know Tennessee fans liked him, but that guy was not really a fit for the Tennessee offense. He was more of a possession guy. He wasn't the guy that was going to stretch the field vertically. That's what they need, right? Think about their offense trying, basically designed to try to create those explosive plays down the field. They didn't really have those guys, right? They went out and they brought in Chris Brazzell from Tulane, hoping he'd be that guy. Dante Thornton, who was a talented guy, brought him from Oregon, never really became that home run threat they were looking for. Squirrel White in the slot, and the guys, the slot receiver position in the Tennessee offense, this Art Briles Tennessee version of what they run. It's kind of a premier position in that offense. That's where Jalen Hyatt played. And Squirrel White just like he wasn't up to that standard. He's good, he's solid, but he's not that type of explosive receiver. So the question here becomes, has that changed this year? Have they upgraded the receiver room, become more explosive at that position, closer to what they were in 2022 than what they had been in the last 2 seasons? Well, I mean, it's hard to tell the first 2 games, right? So I would say it's to be determined, TBD right now. They haven't really played anybody. But if you just watch the guys and how they move out there on the field and what I know of them, I will say based on that, I do think this Tennessee receiver room is more explosive this year than they have been either of the last 2 years. Brazzell is their number one guy right now. He's averaging like 7 catches and roughly like 90-ish yards per game through the first 2 games. He came to Tennessee from Tulane a couple years ago, so it's his second year in the system. He wasn't really quite what they were hoping he would be last year. I think 29 catches a year ago. So did some again like their whole receiver room fine, but just not elite. But he has gone to that fast start, about 7 catches, 90 yards per game right now. So he's their number one guy to this point. I do think he's a good receiver. Then there's a really intriguing player in Mike Matthews as a redshirt freshman. A lot of you Georgia fans, you're probably familiar with that name. Parkview High School here in the state of Georgia. I'm from Gwinnett County. Parkview is my rival growing up, so I'm very familiar with that program. And I wanted Mike Matthews coming out of high school. I'm not going to lie. I wanted that guy. Explosive playmaker, 100%. Didn't play a lot last year. There's a thought that he might enter the portal because he's a big 5-star guy. Didn't really see the field last year, so I'm going to transfer out. They were able to keep him on the roster. So they've got him now. And he had a couple drops against Syracuse, but he is an explosive athlete. He's still learning how to play at this level, but in the Tennessee offense, this is not a shot at them. It's just is what it is. It's a simple offense, and it has to be simple because they run with this tempo, right? If you run with tempo, you can't have an overly complex offense because you can't go that fast. So it's not to say that the coaching staff is dumb, the players are dumb. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it has to be simple because that's for them to go as fast as they do. It has to be, right? So it's not an overly complex offense for quarterbacks and receivers to get up to speed, and that's one of the reasons why Aguilar has gotten up to speed so quickly as the summer enrollee. He wasn't at Tennessee for the spring, guys. Now he's run this offense because it's not that hard. It's more or less a plug-and-play type offense. But Mike Matthews is a guy that has legit ability. We just haven't quite seen it yet, but it could come out at any point. So let's just hope, fingers crossed, it's not this week. And then the guy, honestly, at receiver that concerns me the most in this game at that position is a freshman named Braylon Staley. He's a top 100 receiver as a smaller slot guy, about 6 foot, maybe 180 pounds. That's what he's listed at. I don't know if he's 180 pounds, looking at him out there on the field, but somewhere around there, a smaller slot receiver, okay? He's got legit speed, former top 100 guy. This is the matchup that concerns me with the Tennessee pass game. Staley in the slot against Janelle Aguero at the star position. I've been high on Janelle Aguero for a long time since he came out of high school. I think he's the prototype for Georgia at that star position. It's kind of like a hybrid corner, linebacker, safety, all thrown in one there. But the question with Janelle has always been, I think there's still somewhat of a question there. Can he hold up effectively enough, consistently enough in coverage against these type of speedy, shifty slot receivers? I imagine that Tennessee is going to try to test that, right? And I hope Janelle is up to that challenge. I don't know though. That is a question for me in this game. That's my biggest concern when you look at the Georgia pass defense against the Tennessee passing offense. Talking about matchups, that's the one that concerns me. Dalen Everett, I love Dalen. All right, whether it's Ellis Robinson, whether it's Daniel Harris on the other side, I feel good there. The slot. That's what concerns me. Whether it's Janelle Aguero, whether it's a safety matchup. I love KJ, but maybe you get Kyron Jones or you get Corey Thomas matched up on one of those slot guys. That is a little bit more of a concern there for me. Hopefully, we're able to, once again, stop the run with even numbers to allow us to keep that too high safety shell to get help over the top to Janelle if he potentially needs that. But I still think it's fair to say that is a question for Georgia right now. That is a matchup to certainly watch that could favor Tennessee in this game. So when you get these receivers and all, I'm not ready to proclaim that this 2025 Tennessee wide receiver core is on the level of the 2022 Tennessee receivers. I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think, based off what I've seen to this point, I think it's fair to say, I don't think it's crazy to suggest that they're closer to 2022 than they have been either the past 2 years, right? So that's kind of where I see the receivers. But honestly, guys, you can talk about the quarterback, you can talk about the receiver, the Tennessee pass game. None of that matters all that much if, again, go back to what I said earlier. If they cannot force us out of our too high safety shell by running the football effectively. The Tennessee offense has evolved over the years. It has become, I don't want to call it complex. They've added a few more elements, a few more layers to their offense in recent years, trying to respond to how defenses have been defending them since Josh Heupel got to the SEC. Now they'll run more screen game. They'll run more crossing routes, which wasn't really a part of their offense when he first got to Tennessee. But again, at its core, guys, let's go back to what I told you. At its core, the Tennessee offense still wants to hit those vertical kill shots down the field, outside the hashes with the wide receivers, with those splits they have, guys. Insanely crazy wide splits, right? And part of the reason they do that, there's a number of reasons they do it. Number one, it creates more even boxes, even number boxes, because like our star defender, right? If you have these extreme wide receiver splits, he's spread out more. So it's harder for him to fit against the run in the box. So that's a way for them to kind of generate even numbers, of forces to bring safeties in the box, and now they have one on the outside. And with the receivers split so far, it's harder to get safety help over the top, especially if you're playing with a single high safety. It's essentially impossible. So they still want to do that, but the question becomes, can they run the ball well enough to create those one-on-ones on the outside that they're trying to create? And this is where, guys, I know you want me to tell you exactly what's going to happen, but projections, you never really know. I'll be honest with you, I don't quite know what to think here when we're looking at this Tennessee run game versus Georgia rush defense. Because, again, Georgia, we haven't played anybody, right? I think the defensive front has looked awesome these first 2 weeks, right? But, like, against what competition? That's a fair question to ask. And the Tennessee offense has run for a little over 250 yards per game in their first 2 games, guys. But the same thing is true of them. Like, have you really played anybody? I know they played Syracuse, which is an FBS team, but an FBS team that almost lost to Connecticut. So there's that, and East Tennessee State. I don't think their offensive line is as good as it was a year ago. Guys, their offensive line was awesome last year. I think that it was clearly the best offensive line they had at Tennessee under Josh Heupel, at least in his first 4 years. But they lost 4 of their 5 stars. And I think Cooper Mays is the big one, guys. At center, at that position, he was the leader. Like, he was the stalwart there on that Tennessee offensive line. He's gone. So they lose 4 of the 5 stars. They did land the number 1 offensive tackle in the country in this 2025 recruiting class in David Sanders. But here's the thing, guys. Sanders was projected to be the starting tackle, right tackle, coming in the season, but he has yet to play. He got injured in fall camp, did not play against Syracuse, did not play against East Tennessee State. Josh Heupel right now is being very vague about his availability. There's a chance that he could be available against Georgia and make his debut against the Dogs. But man, all right, like let's think about this, guys. Is that really something you feel comfortable with if you are a Tennessee fan? Like, is it really? Do you really want, as talented as David Sanders is, I think he is a talented player because we recruited him, so I watched his tape coming out of high school. Really good football player. But do you want his debut to be against the Georgia defense? I don't know. I don't know if that's a recipe for success, but we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But regardless, I still think they are good up front. They haven't like completely fallen off the cliff. Lance Hurd, for example, left tackle, I think is a really good player for them now. He's been here for a couple of years, been at Tennessee for a couple of years. But at this point, I just haven't seen enough yet. And maybe that's part of the issue. Maybe they just haven't had a chance to see them play enough. So maybe they are better. But what I've seen to this point, I can't say that they are as good up front as they were a year ago. So if their offensive line wasn't good enough against Georgia last year to force us to bring safeties into the box, and I think that was the best Tennessee offensive line they've had in Josh Heupel's time at Tennessee, why would I think they would be able to this year when they lost 4 of those 5 stars and might be starting a true freshman for his first career start, his actual college debut? Because it's at home? Like, is that it? Like, is that what Tennessee fans are hoping for? Like, does it matter that much for the offensive line? Call me skeptical there. Call me skeptical. We'll see. We'll see there. And then at running back, you lose Dylan Sampson, the SEC Offensive Player of the Year from a year ago. Awesome back, guys. I thought he would do big things for them coming into last year. I didn't think he'd be as good as he ended up being. I didn't think he'd be SEC Offensive Player of the Year good, but that's what he was, guys. He was a stud for them. So they lose him, but it's not all bad news for Tennessee. They do have, I think, a really strong trio of backs to work with back there. And Star Thomas, who's transferring over from Duke. I thought he was really good for Duke last year. Was Duke's leading rusher. Deshaun Bishop, Peyton Lewis have been in that program for a couple years now. All 3 guys they're not like huge power backs, not like 240, but they're physical guys. They're all 210 plus. They can run with power. They have good speed. I do think that Thomas might have a little more giddy up in his game than either Bishop or Lewis do, but they can all create explosive plays. They can all run over you. They're all 3 really good backs, guys. And that's the thing about this Tennessee run game. It's extremely physical. I think when a lot of people look at the Tennessee offense, I think on the surface, especially maybe among casual fans, maybe not you diehards, but I think there's like a general perception out there, especially coming out of 2022, and they're just lighting teams up down the field with Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman. I think the perception kind of was created that it's like a finesse offense that Tennessee runs under Josh Heupel. That is not the case, guys. That is absolutely not the case. This is a physical team, offensively and defensively. It's a physical run game. It's also a diverse run game. This is one of the areas they've really added elements to their offense over the years. When Heupel first got to Tennessee, the run game wasn't all that diverse. It was pretty simplistic. But they've really added to that. They'll do a variety of things now. They'll run some gap scheme stuff. Although they run a lot of counter, they love that. They have a play they love where they'll pull a tackle. It's kind of like a wrap. Where they'll block down and kind of just pull one tackle around, and he kind of wraps, almost like a lead blocker for the running back. They'll run some split zone stuff, just some traditional split zone. They'll run some old school like QB zone read stuff as well. And something else I've seen more from them this year than I really have in the past. I've seen a number of snaps this year in 2 games where they'll bring in 2 H-backs, which is not something Tennessee has done a lot of in the past. And they'll run ISO to either side with those 2 H-backs there in the backfield. And here's something else, guys, just something to watch that I've picked up on watching the All-22 tape the past couple of days getting ready for this game. When their H-back is aligned on the inside leg of their offensive tackle, the ball when they run it, because they can run play action off that look, but when they have an H-back in the game and he is aligned on the inside leg of the offensive tackle, the ball, if it's run, is almost always going to be run to the side where the H-back was initially aligned pre-snap, okay, before the ball was snapped. Now, on the flip side, when the H-back aligns on the outside of the offensive tackle's leg, on his outside leg, the ball is almost every time I've seen through 2 games, almost every time, is going to be run to the opposite side of where the H-back aligns. Okay, so again, if the H-back, just something to watch if you're watching it, if you want to watch closely, have something to watch for. When the H-back is aligned inside leg of the offensive tackle, the vast majority of the time, almost every snap, that ball is going to be run to where the H-back was aligned. Even if the H-back runs a split zone where he was initially aligned pre-snap, that's where the ball is going. If he's aligned outside the tackle, like on his outside leg, the ball carrier is going to go to the side opposite from where the tight end was initially aligned. So just something to watch there from the All-22. But point is, it's a diverse run game with a solid offensive line and I think a really good trio of backs. But again, if last year's Tennessee's ground game wasn't good enough to run the ball effectively enough to beat Georgia, to score more than 17 points, when they had the best offensive line they'd had in the Josh Heupel era, the SEC Offensive Player of the Year at running back. I have questions about Tennessee's ability to run the ball effectively enough this year. Like, why, if they couldn't do it last year, why would they be able to do it this year? Why would this year be the year? Especially considering the other side of this, the Georgia defensive line, in my opinion, is better and deeper than it was a year ago, and also healthier than it was a year ago. We were banged up all season long on the defensive line. Right now, knock on wood, we're, I think, better, we're deeper, and we're healthier than we were on the offensive line, on the defensive line a year ago. So, and I think the linebacker room is better as well. So why would they be able to run the football better this year? Because I think they're going to have to, right? As I've established. But why would they be able to do that better this year? So, guys, ultimately, I do think that this is the matchup that will decide this game. If Tennessee cannot find a way to run the football more effectively with even numbers, I think Georgia makes it 9 in a row. I do. If they can find a way this year, some way, somehow, to run the ball more effectively with even Georgia has even numbers in the box, all bets are off. All bets are off then. But if they can't, I think Georgia gets to 9 in a row in this game. All right, let's flip things over here. Now let's look at the Tennessee defense versus the Georgia offense. Now, based on the narratives floating out there in the ether right now in the aftermath of the Austin Peay game, with as bad as the Georgia offense looked at times in that game, specifically the vertical passing game, this is a mismatch, right? Like every conversation I've heard all week long to this point is like, oh my God, Georgia can't score. How is Georgia going to score against Tennessee? They only scored 28 against Austin Peay. How are they possibly going to score against this Tennessee defense in Neyland Stadium? All right, I've heard that ad nauseum over the past couple of days. But those takes, guys, like either it's people who didn't watch the game and just looked at the box score, or just like hopping on the narrative bus here, like the run over Georgia's offense bus. But those takes are woefully ignorant of context. And I've been talking about it all week, guys. I know some of you are probably tired of hearing it, but guys, Georgia has been running through the first 2 weeks a very much neutered version of its offense. Why would you not? Like, why would you run a crazy exotic offense and show what you've got against Marshall and Austin Peay? Why would you do that? Why would you give Tennessee more to operate off of in preparation for this game? I firmly believe that we will see a very different looking Georgia offense in this game with much more of the full playbook at its disposal. However, saying that, this Tennessee defense is really good, guys. It is. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. This Tennessee defense, I'm not a Tennessee guy. Don't like Tennessee, but I'm going to keep it real with you. They are very good defensively. And I think that's what a lot of people haven't quite grasped over the past couple years. Maybe people are slowly starting to come around to this. But in recent years, guys, it's been the Tennessee defense, not their offense, that has been the driving force behind this Tennessee program. The reason they got to the college football playoff last year, guys, was the defense, not the offense. They kind of got to the playoff in spite of their offense a year ago, which is a reversal from the first 2 years, the Josh Heupel era. They were electric offensively. Like that 2022 offense, man, bananas, crazy good. Defenses in 21 and 22, not good enough. That's why they couldn't win enough games to get to a playoff in those seasons. What changed? The defense got better. Now, when the defense got better, their offense took a step back. So what they're trying to do is, okay, keep the defense here, so the offense back on track. That's what they're trying to do. The past couple of years, it's kind of been reversed there. Let me give you some numbers to support this, guys. So 2023, the Tennessee defense took a massive step forward. They were top 20 nationally in yards per play allowed. They were top 25 nationally in scoring. Defense only allowing 20 points per game. 2024 took an even bigger step forward. They were elite defensively last year. They only gave up 293 yards per game, which was 6th nationally. Only allowed 4.56 yards per play, which was good enough for 5th nationally. Only gave up 16 points per game, which was 7th nationally. So top 10 there across the board, right? Tennessee's defense was awesome. They were a top 10 elite caliber defense a year ago. And this year, they are once again very good, in my opinion. Now, they lost some impact players, absolutely. James Pierce Jr., obviously for the Falcons, was maybe a surprise first-round draft pick, maybe a little bit of a reach, but a first-round draft pick. Omar Norman-Law, I thought did some really good things for Tennessee in his time there. So they lost some impact guys, but they also returned 7 starters. The problem, though, for Tennessee in this particular game, like, yes, on the surface, you return 7 starters from a year ago, but they are not fully healthy on that side of the ball. Multiple starters will likely be out for this game. So starting defensive tackle, Jackson Moy, was injured against Syracuse. His status is kind of up in the air right now. Did not play last week against ETSU. Could he play against Georgia? Yes. Will we find out before the game? Probably not. We'll probably have to wait until Saturday to find out. But there's a chance that he does not play. His status is up in the air. We know that they're going to be without both starting cornerbacks. I told you guys back in the offseason when I did my Tennessee Scouting Enemy episode that people talk about Jamad McCoy, how great he is. And don't get me wrong, McCoy was freaking awesome last year. He's one of the better cornerbacks, not just in the SEC, but the entire country. But he tore his ACL in January, and I was looking at it back in June, July, saying, how in the world is this guy going to be back for the Georgia game? Like, I know it's 9 months, but so maybe he can be back for the Georgia game. But at what version of himself? Like, at what percent is he going to be? Is he going to be the same guy he was a year ago? Highly, highly unlikely. So I thought there was a chance in the offseason that he was not going to play. I thought it was actually unlikely he would. And lo and behold, that's going to be the case here. But to add more to this, more layers to it, the other starting cornerback, returning cornerback from a year ago, Ricky Gibson, is also going to be out in this game. Now, Gibson, guys, I don't think as highly of him. He got picked on at times last year, guys. So, like, McCoy was awesome, so teams like, we're just not going to throw at that guy. So they attack Gibson. That's the only other option, right? And, like, he's fine. He's not bad. I just don't think he's great. I think he's a guy that you can absolutely take advantage of, but he's not, even he is not going to be in this game. So certainly something to watch there. I still think they are good up front, even without Jackson Moy. Bryson Eason, it's been around for a while, guys. He's a good football player. 6'3", 315. He started all 13 games last year. He is a senior this year for them. Dominic Bailey is another guy that I think is a good player. He's potentially in line for a breakout year. 6'3", about 292, so a little bit lighter, but an athletic type guy playing defensive end for them. Joshua Joseph, who's not a defensive tackle. He's like their edge player. He's like their version of a jack linebacker. He's kind of been one of those players, but there's been a tantalizing talent his first couple of years at Tennessee. He's now a senior, and he's never quite put it all together, but he's always had the skill set. You're like, man, if he ever puts it together, if it ever clicks for him. And it looks like he might have finally taken that step this year because he is an elite athlete. He's already got 2 sacks in the season, so that is a player to watch. And that is a match, not just Joseph, but their pass rush in general is a matchup that concerns me in this game. I'm not going to lie here, guys. The right side of our offensive line, I've said it all season so far, has left something to be desired. Let's just call it what it is, guys. Let's not bury our head in the sand. It is what it is. Now, yeah, they're banged up. That was part of it the first half of last week. But, I mean, it is what it is. Now, Tennessee is also banged up on the defensive front. There's that, too. So they're banged up on the defensive front. We're banged up on the offensive line. So the picture isn't exactly clear heading into this game when you look at the Tennessee defensive line, Georgia offensive line, that matchup in the trenches. But I will say I'm absolutely uncomfortable about it. I'm not crazy confident about that matchup. And then at the second level, Tennessee has an awesome linebacker. Arian Carter, I think, is one of the better inside linebackers in the SEC. I love our guys. Aaron Carter's really good, though, guys. He's athletic. He's physical, can rush the passer as well. He is a problem. Like, we're going to have a plan to deal with him because they'll rush him from the interior. They'll rush him from the edge. He's good between the tackles against the run. He's athletic enough to run sideline to sideline. The guy is really, really good. And, guys, that's the key for the Georgia offense in this game. Offensively, can we protect Gunnar Stockton long enough to give him time to actually get balls off and push it down the field? I know there's this popular narrative out there that Gunnar's just scared to throw the ball. No, guys, if you haven't watched it yet, go watch the film session I did. I broke down all 34 passing attempts. There's like 2 plays, maybe. There's 2 plays. One in the first half, one in the second half, where he probably should have pulled the trigger down the field and did not. So if you want to take those 2 plays out of 34 pass attempts and run with them, be my guest, guys. There's also plenty of examples that you were ignoring where he did try to push the ball vertically down the field, but the offensive line, especially in the first half, did not give him enough time to get those balls off and get them where they needed to go. So that is a question for me. And guys, they are down. Again, they're down their top 2 cornerbacks. And I know everyone right now in the Georgia fan base, at least a lot of people, don't want to speak in absolutes, a lot of people are panicking about the lack of a vertical passing game against what they perceive to be inferior opponents, which they are inferior opponents. And I have addressed that this week, so I don't want to go too much into the weeds here on this. You can go back and check out those episodes if you haven't. But I think there's a lot more context to these issues passing the ball vertically down the field than some make it out to be. But here's what I do know, guys. I am still very confident. As a guy who's been to practice, a guy who's at G-Day, who sees these things, Georgia has the wide receivers to win down the field against this Tennessee secondary, especially considering they're without their top two cornerbacks. And I guarantee you, we are going to try to take some shots. We're going to dial up some shots down the field. It's going to come down to whether the offensive line can give Gunner enough time for those routes to develop down the field and for Gunner to get the ball off to those receivers down the field. So, guys, I really think this game against Georgia and Tennessee on Saturday will be won and lost in the trenches on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Can the Georgia defense control the line of scrimmage the way they have each of the last four matchups against Josh Heupel's Tennessee offenses and stifle the Tennessee run game once again with even numbers? Then on the other side, can the Georgia offensive line step up and give Gunner the type of time he needs to attack a deficiency in the Tennessee secondary with both their starting cornerbacks out? So I am very fascinated to see what Tennessee does defensively in this game. I think it could go a couple of ways here. On one hand, with the issues our offensive line has had at times, some of the things that we've put on tape these first 2 weeks against lesser opponents, on one hand, you would think, okay, yeah, they're going to come after Georgia and try to exploit that deficiency protecting the passer, right? So from that perspective, you'd imagine, okay, they want to light us up, bring a lot of pressure and trust their cornerbacks to match up, even if they're backup cornerbacks, because they are just banking on the fact that Georgia had trouble against Austin Peay and Marshall protecting. So if they have trouble against those teams, they're going to have trouble protecting against Tennessee. So it's not really going to matter who's at cornerback because they're not going to be able to get those balls off, right? That's one way to look at it, right? But do they trust their number 3, number 4 cornerback? That's the other question. Do they trust those guys? Do they want to give them more help? Do they want to play a little bit softer? They want to play the cornerbacks off the receivers some. Do they want to go that route because they're not sure they can trust those guys one-on-one matchups? Like, what if Georgia does protect Gunner? Like, what if you go max protect and got one-on-one on the outside and they get beat? Is that something that they want to roll the dice there? So I think it could go a number of ways there. But if I'm predicting, which is what we're doing here, I think they're going to try to light Georgia up. I think they're going to come after Gunner at least early on and try to disrupt what we're doing offensively. Again, I think they're going to bank on Georgia just not being able to give Gunner time if they bring pressure, and whoever's at quarterback not going to matter because we can't get the ball off. So how do you neutralize that? If you're Georgia, from an offensive game plan standpoint, how do you neutralize Tennessee trying to bring that pressure, which is what I think they're going to try to do? Well, it's simple. Screen game and run game. It's the old classics, right? Screen game, run game. And this is where we're going to find out, has our run game actually taken a step forward this year? Because this looked great. Even from the offensive line, I like what I've seen in the run game. Its pass pro has been a little leaky at times. I think our running backs, we're deeper there. I think we're better there. More guys ready to help us play winning football. I think we have some explosive playmakers. I think we have some guys that can run with power. I like what I've seen there. But we're going to find out. Has the Georgia run game really improved the way that I think it has? Because with all the bodies I think that they're going to have in the box, like there's going to be some traffic there, guys. We're going to find out. Now, I also, if you're going to have all those bodies in the box, that traffic there, I would actually be an advocate of using Gunner's legs more in this game to even out the numbers. So if they're going to try to outnumber us in the box, which is basically how teams played us last year. So I think there's a chance that Tennessee just goes back and says, okay, what stopped Georgia last year? Let's see if we can do that again, right? So if they do that, this year we have a weapon that we didn't have last year. We have a quarterback that can run the football. Maybe not a dynamic runner, but a capable runner. We've seen that. And that is one way that we can actually take back the numbers if they try to outnumber us in the box in a way that we simply could not a year ago. So if we can run the football, you can find a way to do that, and we use the screen game effectively, what will that do? It will slow down their pass rush, right? Because they can't just pin their ears back and come after the quarterback. Because create rushing lanes, you get the screen behind them, you can give up explosive plays that way. So if we can do that, it'll slow the pass rush down. It'll give our offensive line more of a chance. Because again, guys, I believe the shots down the field will be there. I think they're going to be there. I trust our receivers, and if Gunner gets time, I believe that he can hit them. I know a lot of you don't. I know a lot of you don't. That's fine. We'll find out. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. But I've seen him do it in practice. I've seen him do it in games against like a defense as good as Notre Dame a year ago. I've seen him do it in scrimmage settings. I've seen it, guys. I believe that he can do it. It's just a matter of finding a way to give him enough time to get those passes off. So to wrap things up here, guys, ultimately, while the quarterbacks and the pass game might be the talking points coming into this game on the Tennessee side, the Nico Iamaleava situation and Joey Aguilar coming in looking pretty good the first 2 games. Now, since his first real test at Tennessee going against the Georgia defense, of course, the well-publicized struggles of the Georgia vertical passing game and people kind of just crapping all over Gunnar Stockton right now. That might be where the talking points are, the narratives are coming in this game. But I really do believe that this game on Saturday is about trench warfare. I believe that with every fiber of my being. Win the trenches, win this game. Guys, this Tennessee team is good. I'm not here to fill you up and say, yeah, it's Georgia. Like, we're more talented. We've always beat Tennessee. We're going to kill Tennessee. That's lazy. This Tennessee team is very good. They are very capable, more than capable of beating Georgia at home. They absolutely can if we do not come to play in this matchup. But again, to do that, for Tennessee to win, they're capable, but for them to do that, they're going to have to win the battle in the trenches for the first time ever under Josh Heupel in this Georgia-Tennessee matchup. So if you're picking Tennessee, that is what you're gambling on. Could it happen? Yeah, it could happen. But that's what's going to come down to. And we'll find out, guys. And I'll give you my official prediction at the end of the week. So if you enjoyed this content, guys, if you're looking for content like this designed for all you Georgia diehards, make sure to check back on Thursday. I'll give you my full final thoughts on it and a full prediction of this Tennessee-Georgia game. So keep on coming back for more, guys. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for being here and checking out this episode. I hope you enjoyed this content. If you did, please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think, guys. What are you most concerned about? Are you freaking out going to this game? Are you confident going to this game? Where is your head at? I'd love to hear from you guys, so get that conversation going. But thank you again so much for being here, guys. I'm Tyler, and as always, go Dogs!
Man, is there going to be some property destroyed tonight. 26-21. Dogs on top.